Again, I'm not going to be very particular. I just want to get the shape. I'm going to go here to create. Extrusion is right here. Then I have a bend, and we talk about that in, I guess, in another tutorial, another example. And then you have a revolve right here. Once you hit in revolve, the first thing you need to do is define the boundaries right here. You see blue? Okay. So once you do that, again, you have your toolbox and you can start working. I'm going to start with a line right here, go all the way up to here, and change that into a arc. Another arc, another arc. Yeah. Another arc. Yeah. I think that's gonna take this. It's probably not very, it's not gonna be very nice, but anyway, it's okay. That, and I'm gonna make sure I finish right here. So as you can see, we're gonna have to do some editing in here, right? I'll make sure. Then I'll switch lines, make sure I close in here, and make sure I close in here. Okay, so now what I have here is the actual, notice that here I have to correct a little bit my shape because I want to finish flat right here. Remember, this is a picture and the picture has some perspective to it, so you have to correct that as you go. We'll see what's happening. The good thing about this is that at any point you can go back and redo the profile. Okay, so I'm gonna hit axis line, and for this one I'm gonna choose pick a line, and I'm gonna pick this, which is the center axis. Once I do that, I'm going to finish here. You cannot see here, but if you go to the 3D, you're right there. Not bad actually. And change this here line. Yeah, it's actually not bad at all. Notice that here you don't have shadows like you will have on the actual project working environment. Okay, so let's go back here, shaded. Yeah, not bad, good. So let's go for the top. Now the top is going to be a different story. If this table comes in only one version, it will be the easiest thing in the world. You draw a circle, you extrude the circle to the top, and that's it. That's going to be the end of the story. But this is going to be a different story because we want this table to be able to produce 3 different versions of the same one. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to start working with what we call parameters. At this point I want to explain a little bit, do a little explanation about parameters. Now when we are talking about parameters, we're going to be talking about 3 things. Number 1 is reference planes. Number 2, parameters. And 3, the geometry. And how is this going to go down? Well, the one thing we want to work with is our reference planes. Now, the reference planes are going to be the skeleton, the backbone of your family, of your component. Okay. Then we're gonna have the parameters. Now, what are the parameters? Well, the parameters are what control these reference planes. Okay. So when the parameter change, the reference plane change. So finally, what we're gonna have is the geometry. Let's see if I find a nice color. Finally, we're gonna have the geometry. Once we have the reference planes and the parameters, what we're gonna have is the geometry, and this is gonna be very, very important. Our geometry need to be locked to the reference planes. Okay, actually this goes here, sorry. This is very, very important. This goes here and this goes here. Why is this important? Because once my parameter change, my reference plane will change, and if my geometry is tied to my reference plane, the geometry also will change. So we need to think in terms of these three elements. Now it is very important that we understand this. So in our particular case right now, basically what we're going to have is a reference plane right here. That actually is not going to be a reference plane, but we'll talk about that later. Now, then we're going to have our parameter. Our parameter is going to be based on a radius. And then finally, what we're going to have is going to draw right here is a cylinder, which basically is an extrusion that is going to be tied to the reference plane in a way that when the radius change, the reference plane change and the actual geometry change. So it's like a chain reaction, something like that. It's like I don't know, like a domino effect, if you want, in which the parameter control the reference plane and the reference plane control the geometry. Okay, this is a hierarchy system. It's the most important thing you have to understand, that there's a hierarchy system in which on top of the whole system is the actual parameter. The parameter control the reference plane and the reference plane control the geometry. That's why it's so important, critical, that the actual geometry is tied to the reference plane, because by default Revit is not going to tie to it. You're going to have to do it yourself. So you got to make sure that when you create the geometry, your geometry is actually tied to your reference plane. Okay, so let's see how that actually works. So the one thing I need to do is create a reference plane for the top. Okay. Good. So let's do it. Now, I know I've been talking a lot about reference plane, but for this particular case, we're not going to use reference planes because reference planes are planes. We need a circle. So we're going to use something very, very similar to the reference plane, which is a reference line. Okay. So for planes like this one, you can use reference plane. But for other things like circles, you're going to have to use a reference line. Okay. It's pretty much the only instance I can think of my head. You're not going to use reference planes, you're going to use reference line. Anyway, it is in the same box, and they are very, very similar. There are very, very few difference between these two. One of the difference is that in the case of you need a circle, you're going to have to go for reference lines because reference plane cannot produce that. So let's go for this one. Okay, so let me see. Let me go back to this thing. So the first is 48, right? So let's work for the 48. Let me see how much is 48. Let's go here, 48. Sorry, 20. 48 inches. Oh, 200 times. 120. So this is 120. Okay. So this is 120. Okay, 120. 1200. That's what it's gonna do. So the radius is 600, right? Okay, so just as the same way we create reference plane, we're gonna use this one instead. Okay, so create, same technique, reference line. Now on reference line, check this out, you have the opportunity to get a circle. So if you go, let me cancel this one, right? Reference plane, you have no chance. Okay, the only thing you can create at planes actually. So that's a bit the explanation. So let's go here, reference line. We have the chance here to pick a circle. So it's just gonna pick the center, and I want this to be 600, right? Can I bold this one? 600. There. Right. So that's my reference plane or reference line. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my parameter, the parameter that is going to control this radius or diameter, depends how you want to see it. Let's go for I think the radius is fine. So let's create a parameter. The one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a dimension, right? A permanent dimension. So it's going to go here, create, the dimensions are here. I'm gonna go for the radial dimension. So I'm gonna pick this one. This is 600. Okay, it's a simple dimension, the one you can use in a project working environment to indicate a radius, just like that. Nothing crazy about this. Now I need you to pay attention here, because now I'm gonna make out of this regular dimension a parameter. So I'm gonna hit the dimension, and once I hit the dimension, you're gonna see this little box right here. Now when it says box and when it says label, it says none. Basically, this is not a parameter, this is a dimension actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go to this little box that says create parameter. So I'm gonna make a parameter out of this thing. Hit on it, and now we have this family, this parameter dialog box. Now I'm not gonna go okay, family parameter or share parameter. Let's keep it as a let's keep this logic. We are creating a family, so we want to keep this as a family parameter. Let's leave it like that. Okay, name, I can call this R because it's a radius, right? But you can name it actually anything you want. Discipline, it is a common discipline. This is quite important. Type of instance. Now, in this particular case, I want to make this type because I'm going to have three types of table: 60, 48, 60, and 72 inches. So there's going to be three types of table. For that reason, I wanted to make it a type. Okay. Good. So discipline common is going to be a length, and it's going to be dimension. Okay, now let me take a second to there you go, to explain a little bit, try to explain what is the difference between a type parameter and an instant parameter. Now in this particular case, we're gonna go type. We're gonna have three type of tables, right? 48, 60, and 72.